your ultimate life. You want it, you can have it right here, right now. Hello there, and welcome to Your Ultimate Life. I am so excited. This is episode 601, and I am now doing this in video as well as audio. So the audio podcast will continue as it always has on all the regular places, but I'm also going to put these up on YouTube as a video for fun and also to make it more lively and more interactive. I'd love to get your comments and to participate with you in both shaping the agenda for future podcasts and making this more helpful. I'm going to go back for just a minute to why I'm doing a podcast at all. And now a vodcast or whatever it is, right? A vlog or something. And that is this. I've had extraordinary experiences in my life. I don't know that I deserved any, or that if they mean I'm thicker than most or slower, but some extraordinary things that are divine in origin, otherworldly. I was struggling with depression for 35 years, untreated from the time I was 17, actually 13, but I left home at 17 until I was 52. So I left home at 17, never went back except for visits, got kicked out, essentially disowned by the family when I was 21, even though I'd been gone for a few years because of some things that happened in life. And beyond that, came away from my upbringing with the idea that I was not good enough and never would be. And at the same time that I needed to somehow claw my way back into the good graces of the family, and particularly my mom. Bless her soul. And I'm saying this not in anger toward her in any way, shape, or form. That's long since passed. And I just finished the book, Forgiveness, A Journey of Courage to a Place of Freedom and Power. And with a complete, open, and free heart, I hold no anger, bitterness, or judgment toward anyone for anything, including myself. And that's important. And this podcast isn't about forgiveness, although that's one that I wrote a whole book about. And so we could have a dozen or 20 or 30 episodes about that. And maybe we should. Maybe I should take the book apart and do a bunch. But right now I'm starting a series called The Monster Series. And several years ago, I did a audio product called Master Your Monsters. And it's a little bit of a play on the monsters that keep us in fear. And when we were little, monsters lived, I don't know, for you, under the bed, in the closet, wherever they lived. And they literally frightened you. For me, it was the basement, not the basement, the cellar, actually, of my grandma's house in Wyoming. And they had two things. They had a basement in one part of the house, and then they had a cellar in another part of the house that was earthen, and it was designed to keep fruits and vegetables and canned items and, potatoes and other kinds of things, mostly food. And the basement had the furnace and the coal room when they had a coal furnace, and later other things. And the cellar had an electric water pump. Now, there was a spring on the property that produced beautiful, clear, cold water, and it was gorgeous and beautiful. And it was enough that a creek ran on the property, like a real creek, and it ran a lot, fast, all the time. And they pumped water out of that creek that came from the spring up in the pasture for all the household needs. And in order to have pressure, there was a pump and a storage tank in the basement. And I don't think that storage tank was more than about 10 or 15 or, 15 or 20 gallons. And I imagine they replaced it with different ones over the years. But anyway, the one I remember growing up was a tank that was probably 15 or 20 gallons. And there was an electric pump to the bottom of it. And when the water would get low and the pressure would get low, it would come on and pump it full again. Duh, right? That's how it's supposed to work. But it would make a noise. And the noise was this sort of sound like an electric motor and pump, right? But for some reason, in that small contained room of the cellar, which is probably 20 or 25, well, 20 something feet long and 15 or 20 feet wide. Not even 15 feet wide and 20 feet long, maybe. And the ceiling wasn't very high, maybe 6, well, it was higher than 6 because I could stand up 7 feet high, and it had wood shelves on the side where they stored things and then space on the floor. And it was just dug into the earth, right? It was a dugout that was underneath part of the house, and the overhead was boards and braces because it was also under part of the house. So anyway, that noise scared me to death. And it would come on, and it was really loud in that small space. And it was unrelenting, and it just scared me to death. And the thing that was scary about it is you couldn't control it. So when I had to go down in the cellar to get something, a bottle of fruit or some potatoes or whatever, it was terrifying because I was always afraid. And I remember my brother and I talked about it a lot, that the pump would come on while we were down there. And that sudden noise in that small space always was really scary. So for me, that always represented the ideal idea of the monster that would show up at unexpected times, really intrusive because that noise was so loud and scared the crap out of me. So that's my idea of monsters. And for some, they live under the bed, in the dark, in the closet, wherever, in the recesses of our mind. But they're the things that disable us in some way. And so I'm going to do about 30 episodes about monsters. Or no, 26. I looked at my thing. It's not 20, 30. It's 26. 26-part episode on monsters. And here's why. What would I think to 26 episodes on monsters? Yeah. And here's why. I hear people talk about, they read self-help books and they go to shrinks and they want to get over their fears and their blocks and their barriers and the reasons they don't do things and on and on and on, but they don't. And they're still there. And I talk to people that either I've had briefly as clients or want to talk about coaching, but when they come up against these beliefs, these ideas, these stories, they're stuck and they don't want to do the work to get past them. Now, as an adult, when I go down there now, I'm 66, so I can go down there in the cellar now and it can come on or not come on, and it's just a noise over there. But even when it comes on, for just a split second, that primal reaction right down here, right, hits me, and then I know, of course, that the pump's on, pumping water, big deal, right? So that's why I want to talk about this, because my whole goal, as I said in the beginning, I've had extraordinary experiences with the divine. I told you about my upbringing, and I suffered with decades of depression. Finally, when I was 52, I had the courage and the presence of mind, based on some divine invitations, to get some help, to take control of the levers of my life. And that means for the 35 years between 17, when I left home, and 52, I lived. I had relationships. I got married 3 times, unfortunately, and divorced 3 times, and was stuck behind and under and struggling with those monsters. So that's why it's so important to me, is because I've struggled, been pushed down and held back. Even though during that 35 years I created big success, I had some good career moves and big money and made some good cash and had some high-level positions and whoop-de-doo, right? But in my heart, I wasn't free. I was held captive by the idea that I wasn't good enough and by the need to prove myself to someone who, because they're human, was also flawed, struggled, did horrible things when I was a child to me. She grew up later on her own and stopped doing those and changed and so forth. But that didn't change what the effect was that I had experienced, and so I still had to deal with that. So this is about the process of learning to identify the monsters that we have. Like, what are they? And really, because sometimes, most of the time, they're woven so deeply into our psyche and our heart and our feeling that just like that noise of the pump when it comes on, I still for just a second, have that. And it doesn't keep me from going, getting something or doing any of that anymore. But it still, for a second, causes that visceral reaction. And that's how deeply woven these things are into our DNA. So when we understand that, and we say, I choose because we're the sovereign agent of our lives. I don't care what's happened to you. I don't care what kind of struggle or abuse or neglect or difficulty you've had inflicted on you or that you have inflicted on others, because I did both. I made mistakes. I did dumb things. I failed in 3 marriages and some other relationships. I had addiction problems, and all that stuff went on as I learned to tell the truth, identify the monsters that I had, take control of them, take the actions necessary to get rid of them. And so this series of episodes is all about those monsters that keep you and me stuck where we are. And the reason, why would I care? Well, I care because what's happened for me since I've gotten past that stuff is liberation. I live in freedom. I live today what I call the ultimate life, the name of this podcast. I live today a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. And I create that life by serving with my divine gifts. And that's not unique to me. You can do that too. You can have it. You can live in joy, purpose, and prosperity starting today. It took me 1,000,000 years, not 1,000,000 really, but a long time to figure any of this out. And so what I'm trying to do is give you the tools, the information, the secrets, the shortcuts, everything. Like, this is not about, well, I'm going to tell you a little and then, you have to go find the rest yourself. My goal is to give you everything I can to help you. Now, if you're like me at all, you'll need help implementing these things. I did. I even discovered them and they still needed help. Counselors and mostly coaching. Like, I didn't even used to understand what coaching was. And then it was this weird thing that somebody does. Finally, I understand it. Coaching is when you have somebody who really cares about you in your corner and you have paid them good coin to look at you, to help you, to tell you the truth, and to be honest and helpful and encouraging. The way I think of it is I describe myself as the ultimate catalyst for personal transformation, not because I'm magic, but because I've earned it. I've earned it. And what that means in a practical way is I give energy, which is love, but love and energy and stuff, that's the same. I give energy, encouragement, example, and permission to those ending addiction to mediocrity, stuckness, staying where they are. So I've told you about some of my monsters. I had depression for decades, believed I wasn't good enough, was afraid that no matter what I did, somebody would hate it, it would suck, it wouldn't be okay. You know the drill, right? I had all those things, and I was afraid, and I didn't have enough energy and enough time, and I got behind. I had a disease I called the 8-ball syndrome, which is every day I was behind the 8-ball, my to-do list, and supposed to have already done list. To-do list is one, and the supposed to have already done list for me was more terrifying because I always felt behind. But learning to get past all that and to take control of my own life so I can live happy every day instead of panting and feeling behind every day. So that's what this is about and why I'm doing this. We have inner monsters and we have outer monsters, and we confuse those. Inner monsters are all that stuff that goes on in our head that came from things that happened to us. Outer monsters are things that are imposed on us, like in 2018 when I got sick and died. I was in a coma for weeks in the University of Alberta ICU. That was an outer monster, okay? COVID is an outer monster. The economy crashing in 2008 was an outer monster. Supply chain problems right now are an outer monster. All those things are there and they're all real. How you deal with inner and outer monsters come from the same principles, but they're different. So we're going to do all of that in these next 25, this is number 26, 25 episodes about learning to identify, take control of, and eliminate monsters from your life. Why? So you can live your ultimate life. so you can have purpose, prosperity, and joy. So you can have everything that your divine nature demands, desires, yearns for, and absolutely is entitled to if you're willing to go get it. Nobody's going to come and give it to you. No one's going to do it for you. You can't. Nobody can do your push-ups for you. Nobody can do your development for you. No one can do that for you. But all the help you need is available for you to do it. And we'll talk about that and more things as we go through this series. That's what this is about. All of this is to help you today. Start right this minute and live your ultimate life. Thanks for watching this episode of Your Ultimate Life. You know what? Move right now to the next video and find out more about how to master your monsters.